And well, Merry Christmas for starters there. I hope all you guys got a lot of time to spend with your family. This is Malorian. This is the Orc Tactical Team. And what we're going to be starting about today is the best army in fantasy to start off with. So this is a person where if you haven't played fantasy before, maybe you're coming from 40K, maybe you're coming from wherever, whether it's magic cards or chess or video games. What's the best army to be starting with in fantasy? Because this is a question I get a whole bunch. I mean, you got all the people that, they were kind of interested in fantasy. They did some searches on YouTube. They shoot me a message or maybe on Warseer. And then you ask, Malorian, what do you think? I'm thinking about Lizardman. Should I be starting Lizardman now? And, of course, everybody has their own idea about what army they should be starting with. But there's really a couple of factors you should be thinking about. The very first factor you should always think about when starting an army is, do I think it looks good? I'm sure you should be thinking about the rules and, if it's a balanced army and all this stuff. But seriously, the very first thing you should look at is, do you like the way it looks? And the reason for that is because even though it could be a good starter army, you're not going to enjoy the game if you don't even like the models you're playing with. For example, one of the first armies I played with was Necrons for 40K. And I thought, that's awesome, right? An army full of robots. But then you start playing it, and they didn't really have any kind of personality to them, right? Everybody's just another robot. So I got bored of them, and I moved on to Chaos. I thought, hey, let's go to Chaos. They'll be very, individual and unique. And I went with a Nurgle army. But the problem is that the Nurgle models look disgusting. I mean, sure, they're supposed to, but, they're just horrible models. And sure, they're easy to paint and all this stuff, but, seriously, I just kind of did my conversions, which I thought were fun for the vehicles and things, and then after that, just lost interest, and I just kind of moved on to my next army. And so really what I should have done is very first thing is just looked at all the armies and say, all right, okay, I like the look of this, let's go with that. And I mean, there's going to be some people that don't agree with that. They'll say, well, whoa, Malorian, don't go with an army that you think just looks good, because what if they suck, right? What if you're going with an army that's just garbage? And really, that's not really a bad thing. Let's say, first of all, you're going with a weak army. Let's say you decide, I just really like Sisters of Battles, I just like the idea with the nuns with guns. Well, sure, they're not great, but they're not super crappy either, right? As long as you're not talking about like the highest tournament level, you're still going to have good games, you're still going to have fun, it's no problem. Or even if we're talking about the actual units, right? Let's say you have a guy that says, like, I really like the whatever Reaver guys, the fast cat for the high elves, right? They're not really that good of a thing, or maybe they're kind of archers they have, the ones that they're scouts. I can't remember their names because nobody uses them, but you know what? If you like them and you want to take them, whatever, right? You might have a little bit of a disadvantage, but you're going to like your army. You're going to like the way that it actually plays, and you can always change it later, right? And that's one of the biggest things you're looking at. This is the way that you're going to be getting a foothold in the hobby. You're not only trying to find an army that you want to take to the next tournament. This is an army that's going to be your starting block to get into this new system. And so really, whatever you think looks good and is going to draw your attention to there, who cares about the rules? That's what you have to go with. Now, if you kind of like the look of everything and you really want to, or maybe it's something where you've played a few games in the past. You get these things too, where guys are playing years ago, then they lost interest, they're going to come back into the hobby, and really all they want is something that's going to be more balanced and something that's not really going to change, right? Something that they can just kind of play with. Well, with that then, what you might want to be looking at is something that has not been released, or is going to be about to be released really soon. And the reason for that, or kind of both ways. Let's talk about this part first. If it's going to be released soon, you don't want to go in, read the rules, get excited about all the different things you can do with an army, and then you lose it. If you all of a sudden jumped in with the last Orc and Goblin book, and you're like, oh man, I can make this cybernetic boar, and I can have this character based on this, and oh man, I can give this guy to this guy, and you do all the conversions, and then a new book comes out, and all this stuff isn't valid anymore. So you have to be very careful about that. And the other thing I was going to touch on too is if it just came out, you might want to stay away from it too. Because the whole thing that also can kind of kill it for you is if you feel that you picked this army because you like the look of it, but because it just came out, everybody sees you as just a person that just jumped on the bandwagon. Or you go out there, let's say like when Ogres came out, right? Maybe you got Ogres because you liked Ogres and you thought they'd be fairly balanced and all this stuff, but then everybody has Ogres so that all your games are a mirror match, right? That's just not as fun as if you had your own unique army, and it's going to make a very different game every single time. So that's something you also have to look out for. Now, past that, people might say as well, like, okay, I kind of like the look of all the armies. The look isn't that big of a deal to me. I don't really care if it just came out or if it's about to come out. I just want to find the army that's the most balanced. You know, this also can come a lot of times from when it's a person trying to get another one of their friends into the game. So they already know that they can introduce their friend into the game, that they can be there for that inspiration to keep them interested all the time. They're just trying to find out something that would be the best for them to use that's actually going to show them all the different aspects of the actual hobby and just, you know, teach them the game. Sometimes you got even really nice guys where this is going to be like their second army that they're going to be allowing their friend to play. And really, if you're looking at all the armies and which is the best one to start off with fantasy, I really have to say it's Empire. Some of the ones that come pretty close, it'd be something like Warriors of Chaos or Lizardmen. Now, the reason why those two are kind of runner-ups is the whole idea where they're almost like the Space Marines of fantasy. And what I mean by that is that they're very forgiving. You know, if you kind of throw your units around, as long as you're not really giving off flank charges, your Swords or your Chaos Warriors, they're strong enough that if they're engaged with combat or something, they should be able to give out a pretty good licking. They have pretty high armor and leadership, so they can probably hold there. So it's not like it's something where if you were playing Wood Elves and you get yourself charged and killed, or if you're playing Bretonnians and you screw up the charge and you get charged yourself and killed and the game's just over. They're just very forgiving in the fact that you can make mistakes and the game just isn't over. Past that, though, remember that even though a new player wants something that's forgiving, that our game won't be over right away, you also need to make sure you're be touching on everything. And that's why I really think it's going to be Empire, because they have access to all the lores of Magic. You got the combat troops in there that really vary from Free Company to the Great Swords to the Demigryphs. I mean, they have all the different types of cav you can take, the different shooting units, the different war machines, a very wide selection of the special characters, and of course their fluff is very deep too, because you never know, that might be the thing that actually draws a person into the hobby, is just the fluff behind the whole thing. And of course with Empire, there's a lot there to actually be reading about. So there you pretty much have it. I mean, if you have a person that's wanting to bring them into the game, or like this is you right here trying to see what to start, very first thing you do, go on the website, try and see what army you think you like the best, and just kind of go with it. If that's not a factor to you, one of the things you might want to think about is if an army just came out or if it's about to come out, just because you don't want to convert and build units that aren't going to be even in the book anymore, or if all of a sudden you don't want to be playing an army that everyone's going to be playing. And then lastly, if all those things don't really matter and you're just, you know, you want to get the most balanced army, I really would say that Empire is the best one to go with. And I mean, where I was talking about with the other ones, with it being forgiving, really Empire is forgiving as well, because even though their units are a lot weaker, then at least usually you have Steadfast. There's different ways to get their leadership better with having the General Empire in there and various things like that, and you can be really sharing around the Stubborn and all that stuff. So I just really think that's a great place to start. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas, and if I don't get to in time, Happy New Year. Okay, bye.